for any reason you would like to not be recorded with your face, go ahead and you can turn off your cameras now if you would like. Thank you again for joining us. This is a very special event. We're very excited about this. My name is Donna Kohut, and I am a field coordinator for Conservation Voters of PA and Penn Future. And I'm going to take a few moments at the beginning to introduce two of my colleagues who will talk a little bit about both of these organizations. Then I'm going to take a moment to introduce Senator Maria Collett and some of the work that she's done, as well as Representative Nancy Guenst. And then finally, we're going to open it up for questions. And folks, just so you know, if you don't necessarily have a question, but there is some concern that you would like to bring to the forefront, you're also welcome to offer up some comments as well. And then during that Q&A time, I will ask you to submit any questions or comments that you might have in the chat box, which you can find down below. If you hover over the bottom of your screen, you'll find the little chat icon. You can submit them in there if you haven't already submitted questions to me earlier this week. With all that being said, I'm now going to turn it over to Ezra Thrush, who is the Director of Government Affairs at Penn Future, so he can tell you a little bit more about our work there.
Thanks, Donna. Hey, folks, good to see you all this evening. Representative Guenst in Senator Collett's office. Thanks so much for having us and joining us here tonight. Really excited to see all of you all and learn more about the environmental priorities for this region of Pennsylvania. I'm based in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, actually in Camp Hill, just across the river, but we have an office in downtown Harrisburg, just across the street from the State Capitol building. So as Donna had said, I'm Ezra Thrush with Penn Future. I'm the Director of Government Affairs. So my role at Penn Future is just to be the day in and day out lobbyist and make sure I have my ear to the ground with the state legislators and folks in the executive branch agencies here in Harrisburg, making sure that we advanced good environmental and clean energy policy and making sure that any bad bills that try to roll back regulation or protections for the environment get stopped, or any other kind of giveaway to big polluters. And so that's my work. I work very closely with folks in the State Capitol building. I see some familiar faces. It's good to see you. We do have offices all across Pennsylvania. So I'm based in Harrisburg, but we have an office in Center City, Philadelphia. We have an office in downtown Pittsburgh. We have an office as of a few years up in Mount Pocono in Monroe County in the Pocono region. And we just opened up an office in the first part of 2020 up in Erie, Pennsylvania. So we have a pretty good presence across the state. If you're not familiar with Penn Future, we are the state affiliate for the National Wildlife Federation. We do a lot of work in clean air, clean water, and advancing clean energy issues. You might have seen a lot from us recently on the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative and other efforts to protect water quality in and around our communities. That's mostly what we're paying attention to right now. Of course, making sure the legislature does their job in protecting the environment as they just get started on their new legislative session. So I'll stop there. Again, thanks for having us and thanks for joining here tonight. Really excited to see everybody. We're really eager to continue to work with Senator Collett's office and to work with Representative Guenst and her team. And I'm going to turn it back to my friend Donna for more. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you, Ezra. Appreciate that. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Katie Bloom, who's our political director over at CVPA. Take it away.
Hello, all. So yes, I am the political director at Conservation Voters, and I am our version of what Ezra just described that he does for Penn Future, day-to-day lobbying, etc. Conservation Voters, we are of Pennsylvania. We are affiliated with the National League of Conservation Voters. They focus a lot more on federal stuff. We do all of this great state work. One of my favorite things that we get to do at Conservation Voters is a lot of accountability work on our local statewide and state legislative elected officials, whether that is positive or negative. And one place that you can look up some of our accountability is one of my favorite projects is the Pennsylvania Environmental Scorecard that we do with a few other partners. And that actually can be found at conservationpa.org/scorecard, or I'm sorry, no, scorecard.conservationpa.org. And we'll drop that in the link. And it's a digital platform. We'll start updating that when we see some more environmental bills go through the chambers. And we also run the Marcellus Money site, which tracks fossil fuel contributions to state elected officials. And that's going to be updated here this, I would say June, July is my guess, as we track all of the recent finance reporting from this last election cycle. So I really want to hear from Representative Guenst and Senator Collett's office. So please, let's hear from them.
Great, Katie. Thank you so much. Appreciate that information about CVPA. And as you all know, Senator Maria Collett was supposed to join us this evening, and she wanted to be here, but unfortunately she was called to a Senate caucus meeting at the very last minute. So in her stead, Tom Holroyd, who is the Senator's legislative director, is here to answer questions once we open it up in the second half of this event. And just wanted to say that both Penn Future and Conservation Voters of PA consider Senator Collett an environmental champion. In particular, she's worked very diligently to support communities that are impacted by PFAS contamination, and she continues to do so. And we're very grateful for her leadership on environmental priorities that impact our communities like that one. So with that being said, I'm going to introduce you to Representative Nancy Guenst, who experienced a historic win as the first Democrat to fill the seat in the 152nd since its creation in 1969. Representative Guenst will serve as the vice chair of the House Climate Caucus. We're very excited to see her in this role. I'll hand it over to you, Representative.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I do see some good friends here on here. Rose Huber, hi Rose. And my mentor for the last year and a half or so, Jeff Albert. I see his name, but I don't see him. So I hope you're sitting, I hope you're there, Jeff. And he was just I can't tell you how helpful he was in our campaign to win this seat. You know, we just went into it fighting every day and not taking anything for granted. And we were very, very fortunate after seeing all the other returns coming in to know how important it was that we won this seat. And, you know, we had so many excellent candidates that ran. So, you know, it was heartbreaking to see that they didn't all get in. But, you know, we're still here in Harrisburg. That's where I'm at right now. And I kind of had a feeling that the senator was going to get caught up in something tonight because we were busy all day at the House, and we had a number of caucus meetings today too, in between breaks in session and then getting back in there. So I do miss her very much. She's my favorite. She's a real spitfire. But we've been busy here, and yes, it was great to be able to get on the Climate Caucus and then to be named vice chair. It was very good. Do you want me to get into at this moment what we're doing in that position? Is that okay, Katie and Donna?
Absolutely. If you want to start with what the Climate Caucus is, I mean, that was one of the questions that was sent to me earlier in the day was, what is the Climate Caucus? You know, give us a sense of what your work is there, please.
Yeah, the caucus comes up with ideas for legislature. And, but here's the thing, okay? My first meeting that I went to, I was told that they usually meet like quarterly. I'm like, nah. You can't do that. So now we're pretty much meeting weekly. And so what we did was we asked the legislative branch that works with us to send us up some old bills, things, you know, all bills start as memos. And, you know, and then you have to get these memos out of committee and then they can be groomed into, you know, a bill. So it's really quite a process here of even getting a bill introduced on the floor. And if you're not in the majority, and you know we're not here, it's almost impossible to get a bill on the floor. So with the Climate Caucus, what we're looking at is possibly addressing a lot of issues as amendments attached onto bills that are going onto the floor. So now we're in our homework time and pulling all the old legislation out that never made it out of here and seeing how we can get it down into an amendment on a bill that it would kind of fit in there somewhere. So that's what we're doing right now. And we're being very proactive about it. So. And being under Representative Otten, you know, she is constantly working on these issues because, you know, she like has a pipeline, it like practically in her backyard, and can see firsthand all the damage that this is doing. You know, so these are such important issues, but again, it's getting it to be addressed, you know, at the legislative level. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer here or anything, but it's going to be a little difficult. So we have to find some backdoor ways in to do that. Go ahead.
Gotta find the mute button. Sorry about that. Thank you very much, Representative. Appreciate it. So we're gonna move on. Got another question. And so Representative, this question, and also Tom, refers to, I'm sorry, I'm reading it as I go, refers to conservation districts. And so I guess the first general question is, how familiar are you with conservation districts and the permit processes? Because there's a bit of a more specific question about the permits.
Can Tom talk on this one a bit? Because I am still in the very early stages of my learning process here. So
Sure.
I'll let Tom take this one.
Rep, I really wish I knew more about it myself. I don't want to, you know, not give answers here. I just can't say that conservation districts are something I've worked an awful lot with in my short time here in the legislature either. So if there's someone here on the call that can speak to that, I'll be happy to find out more information when we go back into the Capitol and figure out how we can be helpful and useful.
I'll jump in with some stuff, and Ezra can follow up if he has anything extra to add. But in terms of conservation districts, they are really critical in getting local work done sometimes. A lot of times they help educate community members and other local environmentally related groups, folks in agriculture, et cetera, to improve the local environment. They do a lot of trainings and education. And some of those projects, this is actually kind of be a little bit of a twofold answer. Some of the projects that conservation districts get involved in are linked to environmental special funds. And a lot of times the anti-environment legislators like to try to slash those special funds. So far, at least in the governor's budget proposal today, he's not calling for that. Let's see what anti-environmental legislators come up with. So both conservation voters, Penn Future, and various other partners work very hard year in and year out to protect those special funds. The other part of that is permit processes, was the other part of that question. How that relates to conservation districts is, especially when you're dealing with waterways and things related to water, there's a lot of permits that need to be approved and reviewed and things like that, whether it is for, you know, development along a stream in an area that might be zoned agricultural, sometimes even recreational. We have had to get some permits here in my town because we're doing bridge work on a bridge that crosses a high class trout stream. And what some anti-environment legislators want to do in Harrisburg is to really harm the permit process by, they can do any number of things, whether it is making there only be one review, reducing the ability to comment publicly on permits, allowing privatized businesses to review the permits instead of DEP, when we know DEP is full of scientists. And so that's kind of the overarching answer to the question that we were asked is, familiarity with conservation districts, what do they do, permits and things like that. Ezra, did I miss any top lines?
I'll just mention briefly, Katie, that, Chapter 105 permits, which is waterway, that's a big part of what the CCDs do across the state. 102 is also important, and the ENS permits. ENS is, I'm sorry, the shorthand language, erosion and sediment control permits. And that's like anytime you have like construction or you have a disturbance of soil, you might see soil socks or what have you put around new construction to prevent runoff or erosion of soil into waterways and drainage. There are permits that have to be applied for with the county conservation districts and complied with to do any kind of that work. So that's most of the work what they do. I know that Bucks County Conservation District is a part of our conversation here this evening. It's exciting to see you here. Our conservation districts are so important, and it's important we have legislators like Senator Collett and Representative Guenst in Harrisburg to stand up for the county conservation districts and make sure that we maintain robust funding for the county conservation districts. I know that we work closely, Katie and I work closely with an organization called the Pennsylvania Association of County Conservation Districts. PACD does some great work in the Capitol building alongside us, making sure that we have the proper funding for those folks. And there are no shortcuts through legislative attacks that are pushed in Harrisburg. And I will just mention briefly, since we're talking about permitting processes, there are a few bills, there'll be some in the House shortly, but there are a few bills introduced already in the Senate that are trying to roll back regulations and shorten permit timelines and basically gut the permitting processes from the DEP and the conservation districts and basically auction them out to engineers and folks who may be in line with the companies and other folks who really shouldn't be. And so there are already some bills in Harrisburg that are trying to curtail and make things easier for third parties and to hurt the permit processes we have in place right now. Right now, Pennsylvania has a pretty strong regulatory review act, and the process for permits are pretty good. And we just continue to face session. We continue to face attacks on how we do our permits in Pennsylvania. So I'll just add those few things and I'll stop.
Yeah, and I did want to say, I got a direct message, but I did want to share this with everybody. I dropped a link in the chat that is DEP's website for conservation districts. It tells you more about them. It does have their locations and things like that. So I hope that's helpful if folks on this call, this Zoom, not call, are not as familiar with conservation districts.
One fun fact, and I think it's cool to share this quick, and then I'll be quiet, but I think Representative Guenst, your district is Montgomery County plus a bit of Philadelphia County. Is that right? I like that I had that remembered. Fun fact, there are 66 conservation districts in Pennsylvania. You might know that we do have 67 counties in Pennsylvania. Philadelphia County does not have a conservation district. So that's a fun fact you can all keep in mind. I thought that was peculiar first time I learned that too. So I just wanted to share the little fun fact with y'all.
Yeah, and the Pennypack watershed runs through that part of the district that I have in Philadelphia. So I'm a little surprised at that as well. And Katie, feel free to answer any of these questions as they come along, because you did really good with that one.
Well, if I could, and thank you for everybody for chiming in. And as Ezra mentioned, we do have the director of the Bucks County Conservation District here, and I'm gonna give her just a moment. If there's any other information that you'd like to add or anything you'd like to clarify, we're all gonna be, well versed in conservation districts here, which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I didn't realize I could unmute myself. Thank you, Donna. And Katie and Ezra, yeah, I'm not going to repeat everything that you guys just said, but that was great. I love hearing other people that have an idea of what we do. And Representative Guenst, thanks. I'll just take 2 seconds. Just to say that, yeah, every county except Philadelphia has a conservation district, and our job is to work as the local DEP office when it comes to permitting. And we're really reviewing all of the plans for the state's minimum environmental requirements when it comes to construction activities. So my concern right now are the bills that Ezra alluded to. I think there's House Bill 139 is the number, and specifically that it's trying to authorize third-party reviewers, which would be private consulting companies. And the reason that that is a concern is that our office and every office around the state, we work for the public. And we always say that our client is the public resource, the stream, the field, the forest, your drinking water. And so when we're reviewing plans, we don't have any conflict of interest. We don't have anything to any like clients to please in that respect, other than working as efficiently as we can. So I think that, you know, the idea of having a third party reviewer be authorized to do that work is a little bit concerning. Other than that, we do a lot of other wonderful programs. We work with our agricultural communities nonstop. We work with on diversity. We bringing gardens into more urban areas. Education. Again, I won't even bore you all with going through it. I saw the website went up, learn more about us, and I'd be really happy to sit and meet with you for 10 or 15 minutes when you're in town and bring along Montgomery County Conservation District with me. So it was a real pleasure to get to say hi. I hope we get to build a better relationship.
Thank you so much. What a
Thank
wonderful,
you.
robust conversation about conservation districts. Love it. So we're going to switch gears a little bit here. We're going to move on. And a question that we had gotten was, what or how do you plan to address, excuse me, how do you plan, where did it go? Environmental, how do you plan to address environmental injustices in your districts? And also, what are you most concerned with, or what issues have you heard the most about from your constituents?
Pretty much just a lack of inaction on what needs to be dealt with around here. Now, I know in parts of our district we've been pretty good with like stream bank mitigation and getting grants and all to get that kind of work done. Councils are creating new committees like our environmental advisory boards. So you can really see an uptick in the action on the local level, I believe. That's how I see it in my district. And so I'm really proud of the commissioners and the council people that are stepping up to do these things, because it all starts on the local level. And then as a legislator, you know, it's really easy for me to be able to come out here and say, okay, please, you know, my district needs money to get these stream banks done, or these, you know, waterways, because we have the Pennypack Creek that runs right through us, you know. And so what we've been doing, you know, we've been promoting a lot online, because I did ask for Game and Fisheries Committee, which I got, and Agriculture and Rural Affairs as well, along with Human Services and Children and Youth. But it was kind of my backdoor way in there to be able to talk about game and fisheries and let our people know how much they can do outside. And once they're outside and walking the creek or going fishing and stuff, they can see how important this is. And you know, I always have a big voice wherever I go. So I'm just going to keep talking louder and louder, and hopefully people start listening more.
In Senator Collett's office, we're going to be doing a lot of work, as we have in the past session, on PFAS. And I know a bunch of folks on the call here know about PFAS, but if you don't, these perfluoroalkali substances is basically what 3M came up with and created Teflon out of. It's the chemicals that help make water resistant products become water resistant. And because of that, it means that these chemicals tend to last for a long time once they get exposed to the environment. And at the Horsham Air Guard Station and the military bases up there in Warrington, Warminster, Horsham areas, they used those chemicals in the firefighting foams that they would practice with to put out jet engine fires. And that was a training site for the National Guard from around the country. They would come and practice using these foams and putting out these fires right there. And those chemicals seeped into the groundwater. It has gone on to the runoff from the base. And even though the bases have been closed for a long time, we're still finding some of the nation's highest concentration of these chemicals in and around the base. So the Senator has put out a couple bills on addressing the threshold of the chemicals in your water and in the groundwater surrounding the base and the rest of the district that would apply for the whole Commonwealth, because we know that even though it's a highly concentrated problem in our area, anywhere there's an airport in the Commonwealth, it's likely that these chemicals have been used. Anywhere that there's a military base in our Commonwealth, it's likely that these chemicals have been used. So the first bill is to push setting a limit, a maximum contaminant level, which is lower than what the EPA is looking at right now. For those of you that know this, I'm sorry to be repeating it a little bit for you, but for those that don't know, that the EPA has a lifetime limit that of exposure for PFAS chemicals that's not enforceable by the states. So we're looking to set a state-based limit so that our laws empower our district attorneys, our attorney general, to go after the polluters in this case, to help them, to make them pay for the cleanup. Right now, a lot of water ratepayers are paying for their water companies to clean up this mess. And that's not any fault of their own. And the ratepayers getting stuck with the shouldering the burden here. So the basis of the laws that Senator Collett is pushing on PFAS have to do with setting the limit and allowing our Hazardous Sites Cleanup Act to step in and shoulder some of the burden with cleaning this up, and giving the Attorney General the authority to have original jurisdiction on environmental crimes. Right now, the laws in Pennsylvania are set in a way that only a local district attorney can bring an environmental action against a polluter. And local DAs aren't necessarily always focused or trained or have the skill set necessary to take that on. It really should be something that our state attorney general goes after. They have a whole division devoted to environmental crimes as it is. But if a local DA doesn't know that they should open a case, that they can open a case and refer it up to the attorney general, well, that's just a non-starter. Together with Senator Sanacero, Senator Collett has introduced a series of bills which gives those original jurisdiction authority to the attorney general. And we really hope that that's something that can move in the legislature, because again, it's an opportunity to allow the appropriate folks with the appropriate resources to focus the attention that they need to onto these issues, rather than a district attorney who should and rightly be focused on local crime issues. So those are some of the things that we have coming out of our office. Of course, the senator is a big proponent of RGGI and the governor's push to cap some of the carbon emissions that are occurring throughout the Commonwealth. And though we don't have a power plant in our district, we know that the air that we breathe and the water that we drink is impacted by the emissions from these carbon emitting power plants all across the Commonwealth. And the legislative efforts that are out there right now to try and stop the Commonwealth from joining RGGI is just something that we're going to continue to push back on, continue to fight against, because it's clear that the legislature has had ample opportunity to work on these things, but at every chance they get, they push back and say no. And so, you know, the governor has this authority to bring us into RGGI, and it's something that Senator Collett fully supports and looks forward to seeing come into fruition for all of us.
Thank you very much, Tom, for the update on all of the work that coming out of the senator's office. We very much appreciate it. And please keep all of us updated on the ways that those of us on the call and throughout, you know, the area can continue to push and support the senator's work. Very much appreciate that. So let's talk a little bit about RGGI. RGGI is the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. And for those that don't know, it is a carbon trading program that most of the Northeast states have joined to put a price on carbon in order to help to transition our communities to cleaner forms of energy. So Representative Guenst, what are your thoughts on RGGI, and what can we do as Montco residents to help get RGGI across the finish line?
You just got to contact, you know, the legislators in whatever district you're in, and just keep making your voice heard. Keep making your voice heard. And feel free to send, you know, your thoughts to legislators that aren't even in your district. You know, I get plenty of information coming to me every day that's outside of my district, because, you know, when you create a law, even though, you know, you're there for your district, it affects everybody in Pennsylvania. So we just got to think of the bigger picture here, you know. And I knew it was going to be tough. When my first day after getting sworn in, I was standing on the House floor looking up, and they have these blocks of lettering that go all around, and it starts with justice, integrity, petroleum. If you can believe that, you have to come and see it for yourself. And I thought, it's going to be tough here, and it is tough here to get these things across. I did introduce one memo that I hope can make it out of there into a bill about concerning eminent domain and public utility pipelines, because a lot of people are really having a hard time with these big companies coming in and, you know, and there's towns for monetary reasons, you know, declaring eminent domain, and people are losing portions of their properties to this without even being able to have a say in it. So, you know, any word we can say, anything we can do, we just have to talk louder out there and hopefully start flipping minds here and, you know, getting just more people on our side. So everything like what Katie does and Donna does and Ezra does, you know, is just so very important.
Thank you. And it looks like we've got a follow-up. So staying on RGGI, I have a question from Mark saying there was indeed an overwhelming public response in favor of RGGI. Any idea of what impact that, you know, public support will have?
I hope it has tremendous support, you know, that it has tremendous impact. So we just have to keep our fingers crossed and see where it goes with that. Okay.
Love it. We'll keep cranking away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, we're going to switch gears again. So Hadley had this great question. And she asks, how can I work to have the Buck schools, high schools in Bensalem specifically, to teach about climate change and recycling? She's hearing from high school students that they don't teach about either of those things. So
right. So start with your school board, okay? Because, you know, environmental, everything about our environment, there needs to be a place in the classroom, you know, for these things. And they set the curriculum. I mean, there's a lot of states that they say you have to have this as part of your curriculum. And apparently we're not one of those either. So make your voice heard to your kids' schools that, you know, you want part of this to be part of their curriculum. And it's so easy to put it in there, whether it's, you know, science class or, you know, history class or whatever it is. You know, there are ways to get our kids enlightened about environmental knowledge. You know, I'll never forget one of the first things I remembered, or that I really enjoyed, was the first time we celebrated Earth Day. You know, so I'm showing my age. I was in about, I think it was around ninth grade or right in there. And it was so incredible to go outside and walk in. We had cornfields behind the schools then and all, and you know, doing cleanup and you know, just trying to make the environment around us, you know, more welcoming and being part of it. You know, it should be a part of all of our children's education.
And I've got a follow-up to that.
Updated, what is
Actually,
it?
look at what just dropped in. There was some updated standards last year. So I believe transitions to school districts are happening. We
Good.
also need to remember, like, obviously public school funding, to implement new programs, but really keeping it at the forefront. And remind your local school board that they can do this now.
Yes, good. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you to both of you for weighing in on that. Change starts at the smallest levels, right? So moving on to the next question. The question is, what other possibilities, aside from amendments, are possible for minority parties that want environmental legislation? So I don't know if Tom looks
I
like you
can
want
tell you
to.
the most obvious answer to that. Okay, there's only one answer to it. You need to vote in more progressive candidates to office. Okay, I'm sorry, but that's how that works. If the Speaker of the House, Mr. Cutler, does not want to put a bill out on the table, it doesn't go there. It just doesn't happen. And until you have control of the House, we at our level here, it's very difficult. You know, I had a one-on-one with him last week, and to talk about getting some legislation up on the table. And the conversation turned to, he raises chickens, I have chickens. We started talking about chickens, okay? God's honest truth, you know? And I will say that Cutler seems like a more reasonable person than our last, you know, speaker was. So maybe we'll have a little bit more leeway with him, but we'll have to see how it goes.
I have to say, I love the answer that the rep gave. It's not one that I can give because I'm not elected to office. I can't talk about politics on this call. But what I can tell you is that from just a sheer numbers standpoint, she's absolutely right. You know, the best way to advance progressive environmental focused legislation is to make sure that progressive environmental focused legislators are the ones controlling the agenda. And outside of that, I can't really say much more, but I also will say that, you know, yes, there's the amendment process, but we are incredibly fortunate that we have a Democratic Party governor right now who supports environmental initiatives and takes action through his Department of Environmental Protection and the regulatory agencies to look out for us. The initiative of Reggie, yes, you can do it through legislation, but you don't have to do it through legislation. And we're getting to where we are today because, you know, the members that are looking out for the environmental policies are fortunate to have someone in the governor's office that is working with them and taking their ideas as far as he can go with them. So short of the amendment process, I would also say, you know, as the rep mentioned on her other answers here, you have to stay engaged with your legislators. It's certainly something for us to hear from you as Montgomery County offices. and you're in our districts, we know where you're coming from. It's the people that are the chairs of these committees. It's the people that are the floor leaders, that the appropriations chairs that can help control where our money is going through the budget process. We have to let them know what our priorities are, what's important to you, not just because you're, a Montgomery County resident, but how your friends who might live in Mercer County or Erie County, get in touch with them and have them call their representatives and their state senators as well, to make sure that it's not just an issue that shows up in southeastern PA. It shows up all across the Commonwealth, and we need to make sure that we're putting pressure on the legislators to follow through on the policy and agenda items that are important to you. So I would say the constant advocacy is something that we can't give up on, because short of having that majority and pushing an agenda that we know is going to help all of Pennsylvania, we have to make other people realize how important it is and why we need to move it.
That is so true, Tom. And I wasn't thinking about it when I was speaking a little bit ago, but Rose Huber, who is on this Zoom with us tonight, is a school board member with Upper Moreland School District, which is a very large school district. And, maybe Rose could enlighten us a little bit about how we could get the best way to get some changes in our education and what's taught, and more infusion into our environment, into the school's curriculum. Can I put you on there, Rose?
Oh, please do.
There you go.
No, my answer is kind of very similar to what you said. In addition to staying engaged with your local legislature, you need to be engaged with your local school, with your school board. You have to remember that the school board, in a way, the school board controls not just the school itself as an entity, but has impact on everything, including property taxes. So it behooves people, even with ones who either no longer have kids in the system or that never had kids within the school district, to still participate in the school board meetings. And I can definitely tell you that since the pandemic, we have seen a lot more people, a lot more parents engaged, and this really helps. In particular, when it comes to, say, climate change and environmental studies, what you would want to aim for are the program committee meetings. Not quite with the regular school board meetings. It's mostly just sort of the legislative portion where we're approving things. It's pretty cut and dry. You want to attend the committee meetings. That is where the public comments are. That's where the discussion is. That's where all the hashing out and pros and cons takes place. So in particular, we just literally had our program and services, and we discussed some of the new programs that we were having, and they go through a wonderful outline, and you get to have direct access to the people and to the administration that makes these decisions. So I can definitely tell you right now it's very easy to attend. You can attend via Zoom for Upper Moreland, but as an added bonus, we now know to reach as many people as possible, we are looking forward, even after the pandemic has ended, to allow for this extra outlet for more people to exchange their ideas and participate in the school board meetings.
See, Rose, I knew you would nail that. So thank you so much for that enlightenment. And I also want to let everybody know, for the first time, I forgot to mention this earlier as well, the Climate Caucus finally has a voice on Facebook as well. So if you're on Facebook, look us up and like us, PA Climate Caucus. And we're getting, and also on Twitter, that is as well, if you want to follow us on Twitter. So thanks.
Great. Love it. Look at that. We've got conservation districts, and now we've got school boards. Love it. Love to see the conversations go this way. So we do have just a few more questions that we're going to be able to get to. So let me move into this one. This is a question that was shared with us And the question is, what do conservatives support about the environment in PA?
And if you guys don't mind, I'm happy to take this one. Just given the last conversation about elections and where the number of votes are. So I am sitting on my couch in my living room, and I'm on one side of the aisle. And actually right next to me right now is my spouse, who's on the other side of the aisle. And I can tell you that there are things about the environment that my more conservative other half also cares about. We are outdoor enthusiasts. And I live in central Pennsylvania. And where we might be more concerned about industrial waste in southeastern Pennsylvania in watersheds, around here we have old coal mining waste in our watersheds. And this is something outdoor enthusiasts care about. And a lot of times you think of folks who are hunters or fishers or ATV riders. More rural people tend to vote more conservatively. This is just, typical trends, but they care just as much about the environment. They care just as much about clean drinking water and breathable air, but their issues just might be a little bit different when we dive into it. And I would like to say, conservation voters in Penn Future, we're going to have some meet and greets with people on the other side of the aisle, from Representative Guenst and Senator Collett's potentially political leanings. So we do work. Conservation voters and Penn Future are nonpartisan folks, because a clean environment is guaranteed in the Pennsylvania Constitution: clean air, clean water, and it matters for all Pennsylvanians, not just people on one side of the aisle or the other. So there is a great answer. And if I can do it at home, so can everybody else. And it's just about talking to your neighbors and talking about the environment and what matters to you.
Thank you very much, Katie. Appreciate that. So we do have just 2 more questions left. So I'm going to bring out the first one, and Representative Guenst, this is for you. You mentioned at the very beginning of all this, we were talking about the Climate Caucus. And the question is, why do you want to see the Climate Caucus meetings be increased to weekly? And also, why is the climate crisis so important to you?
Yeah, they're intersectional. And why should we take it from quarterly meetings down to weekly meetings? So our voices are heard, and we can keep, if you take a subject away from people for weeks and weeks at a time, it becomes less important, and we have so much work to do and so much to say that weekly's good. I like weekly. The more people hear us, and the more they'll start saying, oh, wait a minute, that Climate Caucus is coming out with something again this week. What are we going to do with these people? That's our job. Just to be that little scratch in there. So keep things going. Katie, stop laughing so hard. Was there a second question with that one?
Yeah, is there anything, or excuse me, why is the climate crisis in particular an issue for you? Why do you care about it so deeply?
Everyone should care about this deeply. Okay, this is our world. And I quoted Sidney Sheldon on this one, the author, the other day, is that, it's our job when we leave this world to make sure it's better than the way it was when we came into it. And it's about equity. It's about so many things, and everyone needs to be concerned about our environment. Everyone. It's our life. It's our life. Our environment is our life.
Absolutely. And so we're going to move on into our final question, and this goes for both Tom and Representative Guenst. What is the best thing for constituents on this call to do in order to push for pro-environment action? Who
You
wants to
just
jump in?
got to keep your voices going. Just make them louder and louder. Call your representatives. Call people who aren't your representatives. You just got to keep your voice up. Okay,
Absolutely.
Okay, Tom, do you have
I can't sum it up any better, Rep. I mean, look, that's the only thing, right? You go out and you vote in the primary, you vote in the general election, and outside of that, what do? You stay on the phone, you stay on the email, you stay on the social media, and make sure that your voice is getting into the hands of the people that have the power to do something with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the people that you send to Harrisburg need to hear from you frequently, because our democracy is not just a 2-time-a-year check-in or anything. It's something that
That's right.
requires action every day as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And the representative and I and my boss as the senator are privileged to get to do this work every day. But you know, we need an engaged advocacy group, just like you all here, to remind us what's important to you, so that the people with the deep pockets who can get into the hallways of Harrisburg don't run the agenda by themselves. At the very least, they can't run it by themselves. They have to have honest pushback and honest engagement from the voters that sent the people to Harrisburg in the first place. So staying engaged is the most crucial thing that we can do.
Mm-hmm. And I like Hadley Little has in the chat too. You can be a little different and send a snail mail letter out as well, and they
That's
get
right.
a lot of attention. I will tell you that, because when I get a handwritten letter sent to me, I'm like, ooh, someone still knows how to do this, you know. And they do catch your attention.
Great. Fantastic. Well, thank you, everybody. We're going to start to wind it down. This has been a really great conversation. Thank you to everybody who took the time out of their evening to join us. And thank you for those thoughtful and very engaging questions. I think we all learned a lot about all aspects of our government, how it all works, and what we can do as constituents. So thank you very much. This has been a great conversation. And to Tom and Representative Guenst, thank you very much for taking the time out to speak with us this evening. And Tom, thank you for jumping on board at the very last minute. Very much appreciate that. So now, before we let you go, as we were just saying, what can you do? Please know that the conversation and the action does not stop here in this Zoom room. There's always more to do, and it's going to take all of us to keep moving the ball forward on the environmental progress that we all want. And so, we're going to leave you with a few ways to take action. So as I go along here, you're going to see some links get dropped in the chat. So keep an eye out for those. So the first thing you can do is you can join us for another event at the end of this month. So mark your calendars. On Tuesday, February 23rd, we're going to have Ezra and Katie back, and they're going to host an environmental legislative briefing that's going to guide us through a deeper dive into the upcoming legislative session. So keep an eye out for that. Also, we are on social media. If you don't already know this, you can join our Conservation Voters in Bucks County Facebook group, or if you don't live in Bucks County, or even if you do, you can join our Conservation Voters Activist group. And by doing that, you can stay involved and connect with other environmentalists. And we're always tossing out different articles to keep everybody up on the conversation about what's going on. And then finally, you can join our Penn Future ACE team. You should know that this is a group of volunteers that meet with local legislators to discuss important legislation and initiatives that will directly impact our communities. And so it's a wonderful way to get really educated and step on in and have the one-on-one conversation with your lawmakers. And with that, just want to say thank you so much, everybody, for joining us again. And thank you for all of those wonderful questions and comments. It's been a really wonderful evening. Thank you for spending it with us.
Thank you, Donna and Katie. Anytime.
Thank you all.
Thank you.